iAfrikan. iAfrikan Radio.
Welcome to another episode of iAfrikan BYTES. My name is Bataung Khotsokwane, cybersecurity researcher and news editor at iAfrikan.com. Traditional and future occupations in the workplace will demand a digitally proficient workforce as digital transformation advances. In this episode of iAfrikan BYTES, we chat with Geekulcha founder Mixo Ngoveni on the development of technology skills in urban South African communities, as well as their initiatives that target very scarce talent. Geekulcha is an urban-focused STEM incubator that has a nationwide network, educating and enabling youth to connect, share ideas, and learn new skills. Brother Mixo, thank you so much for joining us on iAfrikan BYTES. Brother Mixo, just as a start-off point, just to get into who you are and how did Geekulcha come about? What was your first phone? Cellular phone, that is.
My first cellular phone was a Bosch. It was this big Bosch that I got from, not a Bosch, Philips Digger. I got the actual, Philips Digger. I got it from my parents, and then from there, I got this nice small Bosch. And then
What year was this?
Yo, bruh. Before 2000, I think.
Before 2000, wow, my goodness, a Bosch, right?
Before 2000.
With the big battery at the back there.
With the big battery, with the small green screen. That was my first interaction with the phone, with the mobile phone.
What would you say was the first encounter with technology, and what age were you? It could be a PC, it could have been, a radio device, but what was your first real momentous, encounter with tech?
For me, it was in primary school. Yes, it was in primary school, and it was a computer. So in primary school, had access to a computer. I remember one of the things I loved doing was Microsoft Paint, and so that was my real interaction, if I could say, with technology. Then obviously what do they call it? Your cassette is it PVR, PC? I forgot what it's.
VHS,
yes. So I used to VHS quite a lot. So from my dad, I would watch a lot of content on VHS. So that was really the early stages for me into introduction with tech. I mean, the other one which really caught my eye was like a sound system as well. It might not seem like your average tech, but I think that also somehow influenced me a little bit because I loved what was going on in the sound system. And that's why I almost got into engineering. Well, I did get into engineering because of the sound system as well.
What about tech actually got you?
I think it's the cool elements of it. It's like at that time, you were not thinking, this is a cool thing that I have that other people don't have. But it was cool to use. It was nice to use. It felt good using it. It was like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. I mean, the way we would play Snake on the phone or the Nokia, that was pretty cool. If you think about it now, people might not know such a game, but back then 100%. It's like I can actually, use that and play with phone. And then when it came to taking photos, there was a period where MMS was quite huge, and that was pretty cool, being able to do that kind of stuff. So for me, it was just the ability to do something with technology, discover something new with it. Not too much at that point, a bragging thing then.
So now going into university, you talked about you studied engineering. What was the thinking behind engineering? What was the intentions behind engineering?
So I've always been interested in two things: technology and business. So that has always been my big interest in a lot of things. So engineering was with the hope of being able to secure or be able to do both. As I mentioned, sound system. I went to an open day at TUT, and I just saw this. They did their own sound system, and at that time I was doing sound, some bit of sound engineering at church. So seeing people do their own sound system was pretty cool, So I thought, well, that's something that I'm probably interested in. But my thinking was I'm interested in learning how to do that so I could potentially sell it. Could potentially see how I can sell it. So that's how I jumped into engineering. But along the way, I dropped out because I just felt that there's an element missing, and that element was the business side of engineering. As much as it was very technical, when I looked at fellow engineers, our lecturers, I just never saw the business side of it popping out. They loved what they do, but I never saw the business angle of it. So that's when I dropped out and I went to do business informatics.
So now the transition from engineering being hardcore mathematics and science, very STEM, to now shift into business. How was that shift? What would you say was the missing element in engineering that you got in business?
No, the shift was pretty easy. It was one of those things where I felt at home because everything business informatics was what I wanted to do, being able to analyze, being able to engage with potential customers, being able to kind of like sell, but also being able to find loopholes in things and just, coming up with potential solutions for that. Being able to still be in the tech space, so not necessarily building myself, but still consuming technology, still understanding and learning about the technology aspect. So the biggest gap between that and engineering, as I mentioned, is that engineering did not have that element for me, the business element for me. It was technical. Yes, it was solving problems. It was algorithms, mathematics, but it was not necessarily the business part, which is something that I actually love. The business part is a big part of things that I enjoy doing.
Let's talk about the good work that you do at Geekulcha. How do you start Geekulcha? Who do you start it with? Where were you?
So Geekulcha is it's an interesting journey. So for me, it started at tertiary, TUT.
TUT.
I got invited to a Microsoft Imagine Cup. So this was a competition for young people in university to present their solutions and compete amongst other students, So got there with 100%. The solution that we had, a bus system solution that we had. But when I looked at the other students, their solutions were mind blowing. And I just felt like for me and my institutions, we don't have that kind of exposure to be on that level. I mean, I was sitting with a bunch of guys and they were talking about cloud computing. And that for me was my first hearing about cloud computing, and I literally could not understand how can you have technology in the cloud.
In the cloud. It's a very tricky concept.
I just could not understand it, but they explained 100%. To me. And, that's when I went back to Microsoft in 2010. Told them, listen, guys, there's a big gap between our institutions and other institutions. So in 2011, they selected me as a Microsoft student partner. And what that means is I had to be the link between Microsoft and the students at TUT, showcase the technology, expose them to Microsoft tech. But with that, I ended up creating a Facebook page. And the intention with the Facebook page, which is still active now, it's called BYTES. Its intention was really to deliver information to TUT students, but it started expanding outside TUT students, the community was starting to happen, interaction was starting to happen. At first, it was Microsoft content, but the students started sharing their own content, started doing live job tips. We would get a recruiter, would get people from industry, do live interaction there. And it just felt like a community. Yeah, so that's essentially the core foundation of how Geekulcha started. So I got to MLab. I asked for a space there just to figure out my life and figure out what I want to do, So they gave me a little corner. They borrowed me their laptop and just started doing a lot of research in the tech space, making a top list of organizations I'd love to work with. But that gap was still there. That gap amongst industry and the students was there. So in 2013, that's when we started Geekulcha. So essentially, this is innovators.it, just getting converted to Geekulcha. And through that, started working with a couple of guys. And one of the guys is still my partner now, Diani. So we are partners and co-founders at Geekulcha. So it's been quite an interesting journey. Lots of learning, lots of mistakes.
100%.
But yeah, it's been fun.
You know what I say, Misho, around technology? Technology requires a community, especially in very niche fields and specialities such as cloud, such as software developing. You need to be with like-minded people in the same environment where such conversations and such skills can be shared. Now, how would you say from 2013 when you've started Geekulcha up until now, how is the maturation in and around maybe, TEF and, I think Pretoria, Gauteng, and in the country, how would you say the maturation of technology jargon and skills has grown?
I think it has grown. Sometimes I do feel not as much as I would have wanted to be, but I think it has grown. So, I mean, you still find your hotspots, and when it comes to tech, Gauteng, Cape Town, that was back then. You'd find those are the most dominant. If you talk tech, you'd be talking that space. When you talk digital media, you'd be talking Durban, But now you can talk other areas. For example, we've got an initiative running in Northern Cape, Northern Cape Dev ecosystem, where, I mean, that's one place where you wouldn't think there's tech happening, but there's an ecosystem being developed there. Things are happening in Eastern Cape as well. There's Limpopo as well. So things are starting to happen. We're seeing also on social, different communities, popping up, different interactions. Tech is a community. Things like 100 Days of Code, which are happening globally, and we're seeing South Africans take part. So there is an element of maturity on it, but I still think at the same time, there's still a lot of people not being exposed to it. And by that, I mean, one of the reasons of starting Geekulcha was to expose more young people to the world of technology, especially those in university.
100%.
It's still the case. There's a lot of university students that the mindset is more or less still the same. I need to get a job. I mean, I need to go, or maybe I didn't know I wanted to do tech for starters. It just happened to be my third, fourth choice or something like that. Now I need to pass and just get a job. I'm not so interested in a lot of crazy things, I get a job. Most of them don't even know the companies that they want to work for. They probably go for the traditional organization. So you can see there that there is that gap, because if people are not thinking outside their environment, it means even when they come up with ideas, it will be a whole lot. It won't be that creative, because they're so limited into their thinking. So there is an element of maturity in it, but there's still a long journey. I mean, we're hearing stories of Elon Musk now, and everybody's going crazy. South Africans are trying to own him and everything.
Yes.
But imagine how cool will it be that we have those things happening on a regular basis, and it's straight out South Africans. It's happening within the country, and we're not, just now all of a sudden we're owning someone, but we like, oh, this is part of it,
Talking about innovation and Elon Musk businesses, and are there any sort of startup companies that have went through the Geekulcha ecosystem that have sort of disrupted, or even if it's a small market share or some sort of presence in communities that you can just take us through?
Yeah, there are a few. I mean, we've got a VAC program. We call it a VAC program, which happens during high school holidays. It's for mostly high school learners. And it just introduces them to the world of technology. In the past years, some of the youngsters who came through would go and get jobs post-matric. There is one particular guy, I won't call him a youngster anymore because he's not necessarily a youngster that much, but he went through that route. There is a girl who's Ufigile, who started her own digital agency out of it, from showing interest in tech and learning about the digital space from that program. So she started her own business. There are some kids who started a car wash business using, they would have a tech element to their car wash business and design as well. So this is from a small, then there's from hackathons, because we do quite a number of hackathons. There have been a lot of companies that I would say have started. Some obviously failed on through the journey, but they started. One that I can think of right now is Guardian Health. They got quite active at hackathons, and what they would do is they would build and continuously improve their solutions in hackathons to a point that they would use the resources they get from hackathons to start a business. And now they've got a solution called Guardian Health, which is now their startup. So there have been those initiatives here and there. We're still seeing some of them. It takes some time, but we're seeing a good interest from the tech community, where it's not just about develop, but it's a matter of how do I run a business. So there is a good interest in how do I take my innovation, my creativity, and turn it into a business. So we're seeing quite a number of them moving into that space.
I think, Mixo, it's very important for trial and error. people need to be given the space to try ideas, to come up with ideas, put it in a market, fail at it, and keep coming up with more ideas. And I think we should, like just what the ecosystem that Geekulcha has created, I think is very conducive. And the failure rate should actually be a good thing. We should have more young people failing. So the conscientization, the interaction with tech concepts, with new technology and tools should consistently be happening. And I think I love that. Now, something we're very passionate about at iAfrikan here, and we've been fighting very relentlessly on, is the price of data. How does the price of data affect the work that you do?
It does.
Because it's very expensive, brother. It is very expensive.
So I've been, with working from home, most of the time I'd be, got Wi-Fi at home, so it was pretty cool. But then there would be times where I'd step up, especially lately, I'd step up, and I never really focus much on the data element. And you find sometimes I just have to top up here and there. And there was one particular day I was actually quite shocked at how costly it is, So it does play a major factor in a lot of the things that we do, because people are sitting all over the country, in villages, townships, even in urban areas, and the cry is more or less the same. Data plays a major 100%. Factor in terms of what they can do. I mean, it sounds like maybe it's just for viewing, but sometimes a person needs to learn online, and data prices affect that. You need to do research. Data prices, costs affect that quite a lot. So yeah, it does definitely play a major factor in terms of what people can attend to, how people can go about learning, and how they get their exposure to different things.
Brother Mixo, I just want to pick your brain on something, a new development that has happened quite recently. And so the University of Johannesburg has integrated blockchain as a security measure, a security control rather, on certificates that they issue out to students. This is to combat fraud. Students will be able to share their certificates now with third parties, and third parties will be able to verify that indeed this is an authentic, certificate by UJ. Blockchain is something that we're seeing more of. A lot of people know crypto, but the technology that is backed via crypto is blockchain. What is your take on blockchain? How do you see it disrupting South Africa? What sort of solutions do you see from it?
So blockchain is something I haven't been closely following that much. So there's a learning steep on my end as well. But from the little that I know, it's definitely an area that could make a lot of things better, more secure. And it almost feels it's different from when you talk about things like AI and data science, but it almost feels like it's this secretive thing, this hard
100%
going on, and when you start shifting into crypto, there are those that are very passionate about it, and then those that are still like, nah, man, this is very creepy, it's not for us. But I think in the long run it will definitely play a big role. What we've seen in the past years is I always rate with how other organizations adopt technology. So if you see the likes of banks and they would quick to jump on such technology to understand it and see how it could impact them, and how they could potentially provide solutions for their customers. So I think we'll see more of that happening, and we'll see more of solutions in that space, but we'll definitely see more education and learning around it. Eventually people will have to accept it, but I think it definitely has a future.
This is another important question, and I think being the ecosystem that you are, being occupying the spaces that you are, we have Cape Silicon, right? Cape Silicon is the hub of technology that's based in Cape Town, and we also have sort of like an ecosystem in Johannesburg. When you compare the two places, this is Joburg and this is Cape Town, where do you think the maturation of tech is more robust?
So my impression with both cities is, for me, Cape Town is a great place to get proper investment, especially external investment.
100%.
So what I've seen over the past years is startups in Cape Town. The ecosystem is different, there's that startup culture, just like in Silicon Valley. There is that kind of startup culture. There's a lot of foreign players. So when I say foreign, as in your foreign investors who are spending time in Cape Town and they are
100%.
interacting with the different startups. So when it comes to picking up a startup, investing in it, it feels a lot better, a lot faster as well. However, that does not necessarily mean it's better than in Joburg. I still think
100%.
in Joburg, there's a lot of the technical capabilities. There's a lot of that part. Whereas investment in Joburg feels different from Cape Town.
100%.
Yeah, so in Cape Town, yeah, you get a lot of the international investments. It also seems like ideas in Cape Town scale faster. Sometimes we don't even hear about them because they are not necessarily developed for South Africa.
100%.
They are developed to go global as soon as possible. Whereas Joburg, it's different from that. Most of the stuff is meant to address challenges and issues faced by the immediate locals, without too much of the global landscape first. It's more so for local, but also do think global, but mostly so for local, address particular local solutions. I mean, you've got the likes of Kula, you've got Garden Health as well, started in the Joburg area. So yeah, that's just my view about the two spaces. But what I'm starting to see is there is a merge that's starting to happen between the techies in both parts. There's still that sharing of knowledge, that interaction. Most entrepreneurs don't have to go to Cape Town, but we're also seeing Cape Town recruiting a lot of developers from Joburg as well.
Are there any intentions for Geekulcha to go to Cape Town in order to just maybe tap into, some of those investments in Cape Town there?
Yeah, I mean, why not? So with
Right?
Geekulcha, the nice thing that we've managed to do is on the ground we do have presence in all 9 provinces, so that's a good thing.
Lovely.
So that places us very well. So we've got things called we've got provincial champions, which help us to understand each province and interact with the province based on our understanding from them. So I mean, Cape Town is an area we've done things with. But it's also, it's worth exploring. It's worth exploring if it's investment wise.
Mixo Ngoveni, thank you so much, brother, for joining us on iAfrikan BYTES. I think we had a very insightful conversation. Geekulcha and the work you guys are doing with your ecosystem. It's one of those essential ecosystems that we need, especially for Africans in tech. We always talk about, hashtag diversity in tech, and I think you're at the forefront of that, especially in South Africa. And I think you're doing it from the ground up, and you're feeding into the ecosystem of a lot of, skills and resources and young people's aspirations in the realm of technology. And from iAfrikan, we really commend you for that.
No, thanks for that. Great team behind Geekulcha. So massive shout out to everybody involved. And the nice thing about it becomes a movement, which means even those that have left still play a role by opening doors for us as well. Speaking about work we do wherever they go. So big ups to them as well.
Thank you for listening to iAfrikan BYTES. Do check out our other podcasts on iAfrikan.com/radio. That is iAfrikan.com/radio.